Canadian BC province tries decriminalizing drugs. UV nail dryers used in gel manicures risk cancer. U.S. President Biden to end COVID-19 emergency on May 11th. Australia domestic violence victims can access paid leave. Google's AI tool can turn text into actual music. Xbox is now the first carbon-aware console. This shape-shifting robot can melt through bars. Western wear is going to briefly take over the world.
Hello, I'm Wade Lee. Thank you for joining us on FUNDAY News. It is Wednesday, February 1st, and here are your top stories. On Tuesday, the Canadian province of British Columbia began a 3-year pilot program to stop prosecuting people for carrying small amounts of heroin, meth, ecstasy, or crack cocaine to fight a drug overdose crisis. The drugs on the exemption list, which also includes fentanyl and other opioids, remains illegal, and the exemption from arrest is only for possession of up to 2.5 grams for personal use. The BC government hopes to tackle the issue as a health problem rather than through the criminal justice system.
Well, as a drug user myself, it's kind of just like showing people that people can be functional addicts.
British Columbia is at the epicenter of Canada's drug overdose and trafficking crisis that has killed more than 32,000 since 2016, when the province declared it a public health emergency. Preliminary data released Tuesday by the province showed there were 2,272 suspected illicit drug toxicity deaths in 2022, the second largest annual number ever recorded, behind 2021. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government said in May it will let BC decriminalize the drugs in a first-of-its-kind exemption.
A study by scientists at the University of California in San Diego has found that radiation emitted by ultraviolet nail dryers, which are used to harden the gel, can damage cellular and genetic materials, specifically by causing permanent mutation in human cells associated with a risk of cancer. Scientists say the results of this study, published in the scientific journal Nature, provided a comprehensive profile of the DNA damage and cell mutation that occurs after irradiation with nail polish dryers.
Researchers from the University of San Diego performed in vitro irradiation of cells derived from humans and mice to UV light from nail dryers to evaluate DNA damage and mutations of cells. In all the experiments, a single 20-minute irradiation resulted in 20 to 30% cell death, while 3 consecutive 20-minute exposures caused between 65 and 70% cell death. Scientists say further research in humans is needed before they can make definitive conclusions about cancer risks from exposure to UV nail polish dryers.
U.S. President Joe Biden informed Congress on Monday that he will end the twin national emergencies for addressing COVID-19 on May 11th. The move comes as lawmakers have already ended elements of the emergencies that kept millions of Americans insured during the pandemic. Combined with the drawdown of most federal COVID-19 relief money, it would also shift the development of vaccines and treatments away from the direct management of the federal government.
There will be 100 million vaccination shots administered in my first 100 days in office.
According to U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 1.1 million people in the U.S. have died from COVID-19 since 2020, including about 3,700 last week. However, case counts have trended downward after a slight bump over the winter holidays and are significantly below levels seen over the last 2 winters. Once the emergency expires, people with private insurance will have some out-of-pocket costs for vaccines, tests, and treatment, while the uninsured will have to pay for those expenses in their entirety.
From Wednesday, Australian workers will have access to up to 10 days paid leave at the full rate of pay regardless of whether they are full-time, part-time, or casual employees in relation to domestic and family violence. The changes kick in from February 1st for at least 7 million employees in large and medium businesses across the country. Meanwhile, employees at small businesses will be able to access the scheme from August 1st to give those employers time to adjust to the changes.
A woman shouldn't have to choose between her job and her safety.
The media said Australian small businesses will also have access to $3.4 million over 4 years to support their adjustment to the scheme. The legislation also includes measures that prevent any mention of family and domestic violence leave on a pay slip. Australian Social Services Minister Amanda Richworth said the move was an extra layer of support for women and children experiencing violence. Previously, victim survivors were only entitled to 5 days of unpaid leave in relation to domestic and family violence.
that time on my own, I never thought I'd be here.
I take your blessings with your heartaches too. It's so easy and so wonderful to know it's you.
学习，一切从今天开始。FUNDAY 英语。
Researchers at Google have revealed a text-to-music AI that creates song that can last as long as 5 minutes. The team introduced Music LM with a number of examples that do bear a surprising resemblance to their text prompts. It has not yet been released to the public, with the authors acknowledging the risk of potential misappropriation of creative content, should a generated song not differ sufficiently from the source material the model learned from.
Y entonces la inteligencia artificial pues te da esto.
The researchers claim their model outperforms previous systems both in audio quality and adherence to the text description. They said it is a hierarchical sequence-to-sequence model for music generation, which uses machine learning to generate sequences for different levels of the song, such as the structure, the melody, and the individual sounds. The model is trained on a large dataset of unlabeled music, along with a music caption dataset of more than 5,500 examples, which were prepared by musicians. This dataset has been publicly released to support future research.
On January 11th, Microsoft put out a blog post declaring that Xbox is now the first carbon-aware console, explaining that a new algorithm will allow the video game machine to download updates during times that it can use the most renewable energy possible. If your particular energy grid has renewable energy available at 3 a.m., for example, it'll activate then. A technical programmer manager, Blaine Haugley, wrote, "This decreases fossil fuel dependency and CO2 emissions, and could potentially save you money."
Xbox is going to be powering up its environmental efforts in 2023 with a bunch of clever new sustainability features set to run.
The media reported the changes all involve what the Xbox does when it's not actually being played. This update has no impact on the console's performance, how games are played, or any aspects of the Xbox other than how it acts when it's turned off. The blog post also detailed a few other setting changes that will reduce the console's power consumption when not in use, such as an active hours toggle that determines whether your Xbox will go into a suspended mode or completely shut down when you turn it off.
One of the great science fiction movie villains was the T-1000 shape-shifting robot from Terminator 2. The robot's ability to shift between solid and liquid forms meant it could get past almost any obstacle, including metal bars, and it made fame for some iconic and scary scenes. Now, scientists have created a mini version of the T-1000. While it looks more like a Lego figurine than a scary man-sized robot from the far future, just like the T-1000, it can change to liquid shape to move past obstacles.
An engineer at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Chen Fengpan, said the robot is controlled with magnetic particles embedded in its material, which use the metal gallium. This gives it the ability to melt to liquid form and solidify it again with heating and cooling, induced with an alternating magnetic field. Scientists hope the discovery could one day help across multiple fields, from medicine to assembly lines, where the material could, for instance, make it easier to solder and screw parts in places that are hard to reach.
The so-called Yellowstone effect, a cultural phenomenon stemming from the popularity of the television drama Yellowstone, has trickled into fashion, making Western wear like cowboy hats and boots increasingly popular across the U.S. J. Rogers Sniffen Worldwide Enterprise CEO Jan Rogers Sniffen said, "Why is it going to take over the world? It's courtesy of Paramount, and they're the most popular thing on television." Sniffen said, "Everybody wants to be Bette Dutton."
You'd be Mrs. Dutton.
I would.
Referring to one of the show's main characters, Kniffen said, "Everybody wants to meet Beth Dutton in a bar, and everybody wants John Dutton to be their dad, and that's going to cause Western wear to be great." He said retailers like Boot Barn, Levi-Strauss, Wrangler, and even Tractor Supply, which sells Carhartt clothing, all stand to benefit from the Western wear trend, particularly because people who don't typically wear the style are now trying it out.
FUNDAY News will help sharpen your English skills while keeping you informed on current international events. Tune into our other FUNDAY programs to learn more about the world's most important topics in English. Click the link below now to join FUNDAY for free. I'm Wade Lee, your host. I'll see you next time.